They didn't call ESPN. They didn't call Turner. They didn't call the networks that built the WNBA. Instead, they called Caitlin Clark. At 22, she's not just the biggest star in women's basketball, she's the chess piece rewriting the rules of the game.
A deep one. You bet! Caitlin Clark! Absolutely ridiculous!
NBC just made her the face of their basketball comeback, and the timing is no accident. While the WNBA faces uncertainty, union disputes, and a potential season in jeopardy, Clark has secured a platform, a paycheck, and an influence that transcends the court. This is more than a broadcasting deal. This is a statement, a power move, a declaration that the center of women's basketball and its narrative has shifted. The question is simple: who else in the league can claim this kind of leverage? And how far will Clark push it? Caitlin Clark headlines. NBC, be clear about what NBC is actually doing here. They are not adding Caitlin Clark to some secondary programming or testing her on a minor broadcast. They are putting her at the center of their most ambitious basketball initiative in decades. February 1st, Lakers versus Knicks. Madison Square Garden. That is her debut as an NBC analyst. You cannot construct a higher profile NBA regular season game if you tried. LeBron James and Anthony Davis against the surging Knicks in the Mecca of basketball. The New York market, the building that defines basketball royalty. And NBC is placing a 22-year-old WNBA player who has never done professional television analysis before right in the middle of their coverage. Then she returns March 9th for Thunder versus Knicks. Here are two of the most compelling matchups on the NBA calendar. Two opportunities to prove that her star power translates beyond playing. Two tests that will determine whether this experiment becomes a long-term arrangement or a cautionary tale. But here is what makes this truly significant. Look at who she will be sitting alongside. Maria Taylor, one of the most respected sports broadcasters in the industry. Carmelo Anthony, a Hall of Fame scorer who defined an era of NBA basketball.
Notice it's getting later as we go. Anthony dunks over Ratliff and he's fouled.
Vince Carter, arguably the greatest dunker in the history of the sport. Tracy McGrady, a scoring savant whose game was poetry in motion. Reggie Miller, one of the most clutch shooters ever to play. That is not a trial run. That is not NBC hedging their bets with a safe introduction. They are putting Caitlin Clark on the same panel as legends and betting that she belongs there. They are launching Basketball Night in America, their answer to the wildly successful Football Night in America format, and they have decided that a WNBA player still in her early 20s is essential to that launch. The message could not be clearer. NBC believes Caitlin Clark is not just a women's basketball star, she is a basketball star, period. And they are willing to stake their entire basketball brand on that belief. NBC bets on Caitlin Clark's star power. Why is NBC making this bet? Because they have studied the data, and the data is undeniable. When Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, the league transformed overnight. The Indiana Fever went from afterthought to must-see television in a single season. Attendance doubled in markets across the league. Television ratings hit records that executives had stopped believing were possible. Merchandise sales exploded beyond anything the infrastructure could handle. One player rewrote the economic model of an entire professional sports league. NBC watched all of this happen. They saw the Peacock subscriptions spike when her college games went behind the paywall. They tracked the social media engagement that dwarfed what most NBA players generate. They analyzed the demographic data showing that she reaches audiences that traditional basketball coverage misses entirely. And they made a decision. They decided that wherever Caitlin Clark goes, audiences follow, and they wanted her going to their platform. Sam Flood, NBC's executive producer, she called her one of the most captivating players and dynamic scorers in basketball.
But Caitlin is also quick. She's elusive. She has incredible body control, so you run out on her.
Not in women's basketball. In basketball, that phrasing is deliberate. It signals exactly how NBC plans to position her. She is not being presented as a novelty or a token presence for diversity. She is being presented as someone who understands the game at the highest level and can communicate that understanding to viewers who want genuine insight. This is content insurance for NBC. If the WNBA season gets delayed or canceled due to CBA negotiations, they still have Caitlin Clark on their basketball programming talking about the NBA. If the season happens on schedule, they have the league's biggest star already embedded in their broadcast infrastructure, which gives them an advantage when negotiating for WNBA game coverage. And if she turns out to be a natural on camera, which seems likely given her comfort in high-pressure situations her entire life, they have just developed a media personality who can carry programming for the next 2 decades. The Michael Jordan comparison is interesting but incomplete. When NBC brought Jordan into their coverage, it was mostly symbolic. He was there to create buzz and lend credibility, not to provide regular analysis or scheduled appearances. Caitlin Clark is being positioned entirely differently. She has specific games attached to her appearances. She is joining an established panel expected to deliver real insight, and she is doing this while still an active player, which gives her a perspective that retired analysts simply cannot match. The CBHS match. Now here is where this story gets complicated. And the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement expires in October 2025. Players are already talking publicly about sitting out the 2026 season if their demands are not met. They want higher salaries, they want better travel conditions, they want expanded rosters and a bigger cut of the revenue their labor generates. These are reasonable demands from workers who have watched their league's value skyrocket while their compensation remains stagnant. But Caitlin Clark just demonstrated something that changes the calculus of those negotiations. She has options that do not depend on the WNBA season happening. Think about what she has secured. The Nike deal alone represents generational wealth, a signature shoe and endorsement package that puts her in rarefied financial territory.
After the game, Caitlin autographed her game-worn shoes and gave them to Nora.
She has USA basketball commitments in March for World Cup qualifiers, which means she stays visible and compensated through the spring, regardless of what happens with the league. And now she has this NBC arrangement that carries her through May 2026 with media income that most WNBA players could not imagine. If the Players Union decides to hold out for a better deal, if the 2026 season gets delayed or canceled entirely, Caitlin Clark is not facing the same financial pressure that most players would face. She can afford to wait, she can afford to support a work stoppage without worrying about how she pays her bills. But that also means her incentives are fundamentally different from the middle and bottom of WNBA rosters. She has already secured what most players are still fighting for: mainstream visibility that transcends the league, one economic security that does not depend on a collective bargaining agreement, a media career launching while she is still in her athletic prime. The question that looms over everything becomes uncomfortable. How hard is she willing to fight for CBA improvements that benefit players who are not superstars when she is already operating in a completely different economic reality? This does not mean she will cross a picket line or undermine the union. But it does mean that when negotiations get difficult, when players are asked to sacrifice for collective gains, her calculation is different, and everyone involved knows it. Why not ESPN? Here is something that should make you think. ESPN has been the primary broadcaster of WNBA games for years. They have invested heavily in women's basketball coverage. They have established analysts and commentators who have built relationships with players across the league. They are the establishment, the place you go if you want to be taken seriously as a sports analyst. And yet, when the opportunity came to bring the biggest star in women's basketball into their programming, they either did not make a competitive offer or she chose someone else. NBC is the insurgent in basketball broadcasting. They just won NBA rights after being absent from the game for years. They are building their basketball identity from scratch with a new format and a new approach. Being part of that build, being there at the launch of Basketball Night in America.
Is there a player or someone you watch even more specifically because there's things in his game maybe you would want to add to yours in the league?
Gives Caitlin Clark ownership over the brand in a way that joining an established ESPN program never could. There is also the peacock factor. NBC's streaming platform is where they are putting their premium content, including exclusive NFL games that have drawn massive audiences. If Basketball Night in America becomes a flagship property of Peacock, and Caitlin Clark is part of that from day one, she is positioning herself at the center of how younger audiences consume sports media. That is forward thinking in a way that joining ESPN's traditional broadcast model is not. She is not taking the safe path. She is betting on herself and on a platform that is betting on her. That mutual investment creates alignment that a more established situation could not offer. Caitlin Clark breaks barriers. Every time Caitlin Clark opens her mouth on that NBC broadcast, she is representing more than herself. While she is representing every woman who wants to be taken seriously as a basketball analyst, she is representing the argument that WNBA players understand the game at an elite level. She is representing the case that women belong in spaces that have traditionally been reserved for men. That weight is enormous and entirely unfair. No male analyst carries that burden when they sit at a desk. They are evaluated on their own merits, not held responsible for proving that their entire gender deserves a seat at the table. But fair or not, that is the reality Caitlin Clark is walking into. If she delivers insights that make people think differently about what they are watching, it reinforces the idea that women's basketball players see the game with elite understanding. It opens doors for others. It shifts perceptions in ways that statistics and arguments never could. But if she is nervous or generic or clearly out of her depth, sitting next to Carmelo and Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady, it feeds stereotypes about women's sports analysis that will take years to overcome. There is no neutral outcome. Every appearance is going to be scrutinized. Every comment is going to be evaluated through the lens of what it means for women in sports media. And that pressure exists alongside the normal pressure of doing live television for the first time in front of millions of viewers. The good news is that pressure has been her companion for years. She has been the story, the controversy, the focal point since high school. She has dealt with defenders trying to hurt her. She has handled fans criticizing every decision and media scrutinizing every word. Sitting at a desk talking about basketball is arguably easier than what she has already survived, but it is still a different skill set, and nobody truly knows how they will perform until they are under the lights. The optimistic case. Here is what NBC is betting on. They believe her WNBA career and her media career can coexist and reinforce each other. They believe fans will tune in to watch her analyze NBA games and then tune in to watch her play WNBA games, creating a virtuous cycle of attention that benefits everyone. Caitlin Clark talking about basketball on NBC keeps basketball in the broader conversation. It keeps her name in front of casual sports fans during the offseason. When the WNBA season eventually starts, whether that is May 2026 or later, she brings some of those viewers with her back to women's basketball. Every minute she spends on that broadcast is an advertisement for her sport and her league, delivered to an audience that might never seek out WNBA content on their own. Her basketball knowledge should translate across both leagues. The game is the game. Reading defenses, understanding spacing, recognizing plays before they develop. These skills do not change based on whether you are watching men or women play. And she has demonstrated throughout her career that she sees the game at a level that most people cannot comprehend. Translating that vision into analysis for viewers is simply a matter of articulation, and she has proven repeatedly that she can communicate complex basketball concepts in accessible ways. If NBC is smart, they will let her be herself. Let her talk about the game the way she sees it. Let her bring the perspective of someone who is actually playing at an elite level right now, not someone who retired years ago and is working from memory. Do not try to make her sound like everyone else. The value of having Caitlin Clark on your basketball show is not that she can repeat what everyone else is saying. It is that she can say things nobody else can say because she is living a basketball experience that nobody else is living. The pessimistic case. But there is a darker possibility that has to be acknowledged. If the WNBA season does get delayed or canceled due to CBA negotiations, and Caitlin Clark is on television every week talking about NBA basketball, some fans are going to see that as betrayal. Like they are going to argue that she should be using her platform to advocate for WNBA players, not building her personal brand on coverage of male athletes. That criticism might not be entirely fair, but it is definitely coming. And if the labor dispute drags on, if players start feeling financial pressure while watching her thrive on NBC, resentment could build within the league itself. The optics of the highest paid WNBA player analyzing millionaire NBA stars while her colleagues fight for basic improvements to their working conditions are not great. There is also the risk that she becomes primarily known as an NBA analyst who happens to play in the WNBA. That her media career overshadows her playing career before she even hits her athletic prime. That the women's game loses its biggest star to broadcasting before she has accomplished everything she could accomplish on the court. NBC would not mind that outcome. They would love for her to become their signature basketball personality, regardless of where her playing career goes. But it would be a loss for the WNBA that the league might never recover from. Caitlin Clark's media test. When that broadcast begins, we are not just watching a basketball player try her hand at analysis. We are watching the future of women's basketball economics play out in real time. We are watching a test case for whether WNBA stars can build mainstream media careers while still playing. We are watching NBC make a multi-year bet that the Caitlin Clark phenomenon is sustainable, expandable, and valuable enough to construct programming around. The Lakers versus Knicks at Madison Square Garden. LeBron James and Anthony Davis, the most famous arena in American sports, and Caitlin Clark at the desk, trying to prove that her perspective belongs alongside Hall of Famers who have seen and done everything in basketball. If she delivers, if she provides insights that justify her presence and make people think differently about the game, this becomes the first chapter in a media career that could last decades. It becomes proof of concept that the biggest stars in women's sports can cross over into mainstream sports media while still competing. It becomes a model that other athletes will follow. But if she struggles, if the pressure is too much or the setting does not fit her strengths, it becomes a cautionary tale about why active players should probably just focus on playing. It becomes ammunition for critics who argue that women's basketball players do not belong in these spaces. It becomes a setback for everyone who comes after her. February 1st is more than a broadcast. It's a high-stakes experiment, a collision of talent, ambition, and strategy. Caitlin Clark steps into uncharted territory, seated among legends, carrying the weight of an entire league's attention and the eyes of a sports world hungry for the next chapter. Will she redefine what it means to hold influence in basketball, or will this unprecedented gamble reshape expectations in ways nobody predicted? One night, one stage, countless storylines, and the answer will echo far beyond the final buzzer.